We begin tonight with the Delphi murders trial. Heartbreaking insights into what may have happened in Abby Williams and Libby German's final moments. An investigator testifying today to blood marks on Libby's eyes consistent with tears. That moment, stirring tears inside the courtroom from Libby's grandmother. Thanks for inviting us in. It's now 11 o'clock. DNA and blood spatter were the focal points in court today. The science of solving crimes, and this one more complicated than most. Our Emily Longnecker was in the front row during today's testimony, and she joins us tonight from Delphi to break down the biggest takeaways from day 9. And I want to warn you, some of the details that you're about to see in this story are hard to hear.
Today's testimony came from two different witnesses. The first testified about DNA found at the crime scene. The second was an expert on blood pattern analysis who testified about what he called a voluminous amount of blood, most of it, he said, belonging to Libby German, that was found at different spots around the crime scene. Major Pat Cicero testified he believes Abby Williams died in the same spot where she was attacked, saying there was no blood on her hands, something he said he'd never seen before, calling it, quote, very unusual. Cicero said Libby German was likely attacked close by, but at one point was, quote, moving and basically walking in blood. Cicero told the jury he believes Libby bled to death a short distance away from where she was first attacked, based on the large amount of blood in one spot. Cicero said Libby was later dragged a short distance close to a large tree, perhaps to try and make it harder to spot her body. Cicero also testified he believed Libby left a bloody handprint shaped like an upside-down L on one of the trees. His testimony and photos from the crime scene led to several jurors looking away. When Cicero testified that markings near Libby's eyes were consistent with tears, Libby's grandmother put her head in her hands and wept. Cicero told the jury it's possible one person killed the girls, but on cross-examination said he couldn't rule out that more people were involved. The state's DNA expert, Stacy Bozinovski, told the jury she tested clothing from Abby and Libby found at the murder scene, skin cells from under their fingernails, and the blood from the crime scene. She testified she also tested several items from Richard Allen's home, like his blue Carhartt jacket, carpet from his car, knives, and the unspent cartridge found between the girls' bodies. Her conclusion, quote, Richard Allen's DNA was not found anywhere at the crime scene, including on the cartridge that the prosecutor claims came from one of Allen's guns. And Abby and Libby's DNA was not found on any of the items taken from Allen's home after investigators served a search warrant. On cross-examination, the defense asked Bozinovski about hair from the crime scene, some the lab held onto to possibly test at a later date. Bozinovski said the decision was made to not test them at this time. Defense attorney Jennifer O.J. said, quote, but this is the time. Richard Allen is now on trial. After the jury was dismissed for the day, the state brought in a motion for new evidence, Google search history. They didn't say what that Google search history entailed. The defense said that Kathy Allen is prepared to testify about this motion. In Delphi, Emily Longnecker, 13 News.
And tonight, our legal analyst, Katie Jackson-Lindsay, is weighing in on all these developments in court today. During our Delphi debrief on WTHR Plus, I asked Katie about the fact that investigators didn't find any of Richard Allen's DNA at the crime scene.
Well, I think it's remarkable and it's significant for sure, because that's a win for the defense, right? But it might not necessarily be a loss for the state because they didn't find unknown male DNA of some other mystery person either. So undoubtedly, we will see them argue in closing arguments, hey, Richard Allen's DNA is not there, but there's also no other person's DNA there that's not accounted for. And so therefore, the killer arguably just was able to pull this off without leaving any DNA behind.
You can see more from our Delphi debrief right now. It's on WTHR Plus. That's our free streaming app. This is an in-depth look at this big trial. Bob Siegel, Emily Longnecker, Katie Jackson-Lindsay, and myself breaking down the major developments from the courtroom weeknights at 10 p.m. You can stream this show on demand, and you can get it on Apple TV, Amazon Fire Stick, and Roku.